you've done the fest every year.
I have.
And are your arms tired?
Indeed. I'm supporting Canada Post single-handedly.
I guess so. You heard about the fest from me directly, didn't you?
I certainly did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was starting not long after we first met in the George Bowring workshop at VSW. A couple
Yeah.
of years after that, I guess.
I think that was 2005, August.
Yeah.
I think that was
Right.
August.
Yeah.
The Victoria School of Writing Summer School, may it rest in peace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is missed.
What attracted you to POPO in the first place?
I love having assignments for writing. I find I'm very lazy. I love writing, and I consider myself a writer, a poet particularly, but it's really easy to find myself doing something else. So if I have a job, if you will, then I produce more. And it's always just fascinating to see what comes out of it.
How does POPO augment your own poetry composition practice?
I've become, well, first of all, it took me about 3 years, as I think I've said in some post or other somewhere, before I could do it the way you suggest, which is just to write on the card. I'm also, it's been a way of learning to write shorter, because obviously it has to fit on a card. So, it's very succinct. And the other thing is that it's very good for editing practice afterwards, because of course I was just looking just today to see what I was going to read, because you said you wanted us to read a poem. And one of the ones I looked at, I thought, where the hell did that title come from? It makes no sense. And I had to sit there and think about it for ages and figure it out. And I probably wouldn't leave it that way, or I would clarify it a bit more. But, so the editing thing comes into it, although I will read things as they were written today, just because probably should.
What changed for you when you started writing it directly on the card?
What changed? I had to get out of my own way, out of my own ego, I think, as much as anything. I mean, when I first started being a poet, like years ago, decades ago, it took me a long time before I would ever show anybody any of my work. And here you are sending stuff off to perfect strangers, and like, oh my God, it could be better. And then you get out of that mindset, and it's very freeing. It's very freeing. So I appreciate that.
Take us through your method. You sit down at your desk, you have your list of 31 other names, and you have your stamps. What happens from there? How do you do it?
Well, the way I did it this year was I actually stamped up the postcards first, because in other years I've ended up having trouble getting all the stamps I wanted onto the card. So I thought, well, we'll do it differently this time. So I actually stamped and addressed all the cards ahead of time. Also, I was having a busy summer with Mom and everything, so it just seemed like a good thing to do. So I sat down and this particular year and did it that way. Normally I would just grab a card and write, and I didn't always every year do it in the order. Although I went back to that this year, it just seemed easier in the order of the names as they appear below you.
You picked through and decided to email to.
I have done that in the past. I didn't this year. Yeah.
How come?
How come which? That I picked through, or that I didn't?
Yeah, how come you picked? Why didn't you just go down the list? What did you? Were there people like, oh, I got to write to this person?
Well, yeah. Sometimes I would find a card that and by now, after doing this for however many years this has been now, a decade or 11 or something, I'm starting to recognize a lot of names, and that would be why I would see a card and think, oh, this would kind of go with so and so, or else I might have received one from somebody, and this would be an obvious one to reply to with this particular image, that kind of thing.
Tell a story about your creative experience.
A story about my creative experience?
Yeah, did you ever have a theme one year or
Oh, yes.
um,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yes. One year I had cards that all had pictures of Nancy Drew books for the first 30 books or something. And so I ended up writing to that. They were all to do with the images on the Nancy Drew cards. So that was kind of fun. And I was often talking to Nancy in them. One of those ended up in an anthology to do with Nancy Drew, I remember. Uh,
a fucking Nancy Drew poetry anthology?
yes, out of California.
They think of everything in that state, don't they?
They do. They just do. They get it together. What else have I done? This year, my first 10 or something all included a line from Shakespeare. Whether successfully or not, I don't know. I just ran a few of them past my writing group a couple of weeks ago, actually, and they had suggestions for improvement, of course. So that was interesting. I didn't do it for the whole thing because I ran out of, I would have had to do more research to see which lines I wanted to use. I'm not a big Shakespeare scholar, so they were all pretty obvious lines, like "Let me not to the marriage of true minds," or "To be or not to be," and that sort of thing. But obviously he has lots more words than that.
What does your poetry group say about this fest?
They think I'm a little crazy, I suspect. You're doing that again?
They don't
But
see the fun in it.
they're supportive, yeah. And actually, they suggested I should, if I was looking at putting another manuscript together, because I basically shelved the one I've been trying to get published because I'm so sick of it. They said, why don't you go through all those poems and put something together that way? So I thought that might be interesting. Yeah. So, and today I was, of course, looking through things, getting ready for this, and yeah, it's always interesting to see what you came up with. Yeah.
Do you send bonus cards above and beyond the 31 that you have to send?
I only sent 2 this year. This is the first year you and I haven't exchanged cards, and I'm going to do something about that after this.
The first year?
Yeah, every other year, whether you've been on the list or not, we've always done a card exchange, and I didn't get one to you this year. But as I say, my August was kind of crazy.
Did I send one to you?
No, not this year.
I sent 81 cards last summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, out of the 400 or what? How many do we have this year?
425.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's over 400 now.
And we're going to make a big push to get a lot more people to do it.
Well, it should help with this rattle thing.
Rattle was tremendous. Rattle was a huge bonus. Tell us 3 things you love about the fest.
I love the connections that I have made with people that I've only met this way, basically, or just online. But I've met people that I would call friends, and I know we could visit each other if we were ever in each other's space. So that's one thing. Getting to trust my own voice as far as writing, I think, because it is a fairly focused thing, and you're doing it relatively quickly and this kind of thing. And just, as I say, it's the getting out of your own way, I think, that appeals to me with the fest.
If you were running it, what would you change?
I don't know that I'd change anything, Paul. I think it works really well. I think it was a very smart thing to add a fee to it. I think that was a sensible thing to do. It probably weeds out people that just go, "I'll sign up," and then you never hear from them again, kind of thing. Yeah.
Are there any poetry communities online or otherwise that you think might like to hear about the project?
None I can think of off the top of my head.
What advice would you have for someone considering joining the fest?
Don't be scared to write it out on, to write your poem directly onto the card. It's not the end of the world. We're not trying to create masterworks here or anything. And if something ends up being good or great, that's fabulous. That's a bonus, but it's not what it's about.
How's the Facebook page? How does it affect the fest? In a good way, a bad way, mixed? What do you think?
Oh, mainly good. Mainly good. Yeah.
What are the bad things about it?
Bad things about Facebook in general. Sometimes people tend to take over, and yeah, it's mostly good, Paul. And I think it's a valuable.
Trying to get a Canadian to talk shit about it is like it's like drilling teeth or something. Do you make your own cards?
I have done a few. I didn't do any this year. Last year I did some where I was in process of bookmaking anyway, the handmade journals and stuff that I do. So I had lots of little offcuts and I was collaging them onto things. So that was fun.
Do you have a postcard poem you'd like to share?
Sure. In my Canadian way, I've settled on one that's called "The Perfect Nanaimo Bar Does Not Have a Thick Waist." And what this refers to is the fact that Canada Post, who I, as I say, love to support, came out with a series of stamps that had to do with desserts, Canadian desserts, quintessential Canadian desserts, if you will. And of course, one of them was the Nanaimo bar. And it didn't look like any Nanaimo bar any Canadian has ever eaten. I don't know where the heck they got the image for this thing, but it was just wrong. So, hence the poem. And when it went out to the person I sent it to, it definitely had that stamp on it. The perfect Nanaimo bar does not have a thick waist. I used the recipe I found in Canadian Living when my boy was young, and a treat for me was to get the new issue as soon as it came out. It showed me how to make a snow village out of graham wafers and icing, provided instructions for a soup I served to impress someone, allowed me to perfect the saccharine elegance of the Nanaimo bar. The cakey brownie bottom I learned to press just so into the dish. The thin, emphasis on thin, unlike the stamp that tried and failed to honor it. Middle layer that requires custard powder I use for nothing else. The tin lasts decades, follows me province to province, continues to work, unlike most things in the kitchen, including me. Most importantly, you must always melt extra chocolate for the top. A crown must never feel flimsy.
How big was that card?
It was just a regular sized card.
It seems like a lot of material for a little card.
Oh, it's, there's one little part in the middle there that I've added since that I didn't read today because it wasn't on the original card.
I see. Yes, you're talking to the postcard purist.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, those are my questions.
Well, that was awesome.
It was easy.
What are you going to do with all this?
Philip Brottigam, the guy who's done a lot of our graphics over the years, is going to be editing the videos, and we're creating a new website. We're taking it off paulenelson.com because that website's beginning to look a little bit like my desk. and
I hear you.
And my sister and Philip are going to help market the fest because we have a goal of getting at least 10,000 people a year to do it. And
holy cow.
Yeah. And we're going to announce this probably in March. But we found a new URL and we're going to change the name of the fest to POPO.
POPO.
And we found popo.cards.
Oh, perfect.
I know, I know.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
I know. And so he's just started toying with it. And my sister's going to help market. My sister retired, but she doesn't get her pension till May. So she was looking for a project. And so we're going to unveil this to the board as well on March 6th. I've talked to a couple of board members about this. My board is pretty much, if you think it's a good idea, go for it. So if we can get 10,000 people, then I could get a salary, and we can fund the Cascadia Poetry Festival. By the way, for May on San Juan Island, we have Miriam Nichols and Sharon Thiessen and this beat nun, 85 years old, from Willis, California, Mary Norbert, 40. There's a beautiful picture of her in her habit with Jack Spicer at the 1965 Berkeley Poetry Conference.
Wow.
So the fest goes on, and it's a beautiful thing. And it may be happening on San Juan Island regularly if we keep doing it, because it looks like we've got a very good venue for the one that Ian Boyden has at his studio. So good things there. You in touch with George at all?
Yeah. We'll be in Mexico again together in January.
Far out.
Yeah. And we ended up having a little mini reunion in September. So I saw him then. Yeah, he's getting older like the rest of us.
Yeah.
He's still quite a character.
Who are the other Georgettes that you're in touch with?
Leslie, I saw her. She was up doing a thing to do with Mom Stop the Harm about a year ago. She was up again in November, but I couldn't get to that one because of other commitments. So I see her from time to time. Other than that, the occasional emails go back and forth, but not that often. It was good to see everybody.
Right.
Yeah, we missed you.
Yeah. Now with a 7-year-old, it's kind of hard, and she had to change schools because they were bullying her because of her dyslexia.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, we got her into a good school. So
good.
It's in South King County. It's halfway between here and Auburn. So back in South King County again, walking along the Green River and the Duwamish River, which is really interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Well, really grateful that you continue to do the fest, and you, me, Judy Jensen. There's probably a couple of others who've done it every year, but not many.
Not too many. Yeah. No, it's I like the continuity, I like having it to look forward to.
Yeah. Somebody I met heard me. I was signing people up last year while at the Port Townsend Writers Conference, and she said, "I want to publish a book of your postcard poems." And so I figured, I want to have all the images, and so I put together all the poems I wrote last year during the fest, and said to her, we can't have poem and image on separate pages because the book is going to be way too long.
Crazy.
So she said, all right, put it on the same page. That's good. So I put it together, but I haven't heard from her, and the communication's been a little dicey. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Right.
But we'll see. I don't have to. If it comes out, it comes out. And if it doesn't, though, I'll get a book of postcard poems out someday, one way or another.
Yeah. That's sort of. Yeah, but you need the image to just makes way more sense.
It helps when you own the images, So that's why I started making my own cards. I've been making versions of the Cascadia flag.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Neat flag with the
good
Douglas
to see you. Thanks again for being part. Thanks for agreeing to do the interview.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for asking.
Happy holidays.
You too. Take care. Bye.